Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our Liberation Theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Hello. Namaste and greetings. What are you doing today? Oh, you're going to flow today? You said what? No, it flows. Wait. Oh, that's today's topic. It flows. So if you're ready, let's just jump on in. When we think about it, this idea of flow, most of us possess a basic understanding of such things as electricity. We understand it to the degree that we know that if we plug something in, if we check the circuit box when needed, we do certain things, including not sticking a fork into the socket and not making toast while we're taking a bath. We understand electricity in terms of a basic understanding, what to do, what not to do. We even understand an idea of, well, if I, have a certain sweater on and I walk across the carpet and I touch Tracy, there's going to be an electric. We understand at a very rudimentary level. Yes. And if we decided at some point, I want to be an electrician, then that basic knowledge has to give way to greater expansive awareness of the properties of electricity so that we can effectively master. We become electrician. Well, it's no different than what we're doing. It's no different from the science of mind and spirit. If we are going to truly embody this liberation theology, this philosophy, this teaching, then we have to have more than a basic understanding of it. Oh, that's static electricity. We have to have more than a basic understanding of don't make toast while taking a bath. We have to have more than a basic understanding of it. We have to understand it. We have to practice it. We master it. We know how to apply it. We become electrician. We become metaphysician. Breathe. Now, in order to go from the basics, static electricity. Didn't Abraham Lincoln fly a kite one day and he got struck by lightning? Just stop. As Tracy would say, just stop talking. Just stop talking. In order to go from a basic understanding, we have to do far more than just read the Science of Mind textbook. We have to do far more than just show up here on Sunday. We have to practice it in order to master it. You can't just read about karate and think you're going to know karate. At some point, you're going to have to get out there, start doing some kicks, get some sore legs, sore arms from doing blocks, like something wax on, wax off. There's going to be fatigue. That's the only way you master it, though. Would you ever go to a dentist or a primary care physician and said, so how long have you been a doctor? Well, I've been reading about it for 20 years now. So you've never, no, I've never officially given a shot or done blood pressure, but I've read about it. No, I need somebody who's actually practiced it. Is that not why physicians open what they call a practice? Because they are ever continuing to engage in the doing of it. Even black belts, you are still practicing your craft, your art, ever improving. So if we're going to go from a basic understanding of science of mind and spirit, then we have to get to a place of effectively practicing it and mastering it. We have to be willing and able to trace back into our consciousness what thought forms are showing up as experience, not just individually, but collectively as well. The more we understand, the more we effectively apply principle, the more we effectively embody this understanding, we understand how power, how the divine moves, how thought moves, how wisdom moves, how this thought becomes these words, becomes this emotion, becomes this action, how power flows. And when we understand that, then we can effectively understand how that which is our inner thinking becomes our outer experiences. We explore, we test, that meditation isn't working for me. That one is. Explore, experiment, apply it, breathe. Because that's the only way we're going to effectively understand what it means to embody and practice the law of mind and action, science of mind and spirit. So when we say it flows, what is the it? Consciousness, for the sake of our conversation at this present moment, which we look at our current experiences individually and collectively and say this thing that we call whatever we call it, sexism. Trace it back and we identify the consciousness, the source of, the cause of this effect. And if we want this effect to change, then we must change, after having traced back, we must change the originating cause to the effect. So when we say it flows, being mindful that it is everything. How is life itself flowing? As Rilke says, may what I do flow from me like a river. No forcing and no holding back. The way it is with children. Flow like a river. No forcing, no withholding. The same as it is with children. Children do not withhold. Children do not force. Children simply flow. And that is our invitation. We understand this once again with this idea of electricity, with this idea of water. We understand when water flows, there is movement. There is no forcing happening when you turn on the faucet, nor is there any holding back. The faucet doesn't say, I'm not going to give them water today, or I'm only going to give them 3 drops. The river doesn't withhold itself. The river rages. No holding back and no forcing. We understand it when it's that, but not when it's us. So when we see this word flow, there are a great many things that the word means as a verb, great many things that it means to move along or to move out steadily and continuously, to go from one place to another. We know it as a noun, the action or fact of moving. We know it as the synonyms to run, motion, current, movement, surge. We understand it linguistically. We know how to use the word in sentences. But when it comes to applying the energy of it, do we trace the effects of our lives back to their source in our mind, in our consciousness? Or do we blame the effects on? Now, even when the effect is something that someone else, racism, I didn't invent it. It's not my consciousness to create it. It's not my consciousness to perpetuate it. The slavery as a systematic form of, I didn't create it, nor is my consciousness feeding into and promote, created by someone, somewhere else, someone else. The question is, where does that system still impact lives today? The caste system. and what is mine to do individually, so that I am also being part of the collective shift by tracing the effects of racism, sexism, gender bias, toxic capitalism, etc. Trace it back individually and collectively to the source in the mind of the collective and the mind and consciousness of the individual. It's the only way we can change anything. Dr. Holmes says, in our ignorance of truth, we have misused the highest power we possess. And so great is this power, so complete is our freedom in it, so absolute the domain of law through it, that the misuse of this power has brought upon us the very conditions from which we suffer. In other words, the same power that creates love, joy, a life of excitement is the same power, same tools that create genocide and war, poverty, systemic ills of drug addiction, etc. It's the same power. So if we want to change, if we want to heal, if we want a world that works for all, then it's time to take this highest power that we possess and use it effectively in order to put into motion, flow, a new cause to create a new effect, a new thought to create a new reality, which means we cannot, well, I need them to do, am I doing my part? It's first and foremost. Yes, that person may or may not be doing their part, but am I doing my part? Am I engaging in the power that is mine to engage in? How am I setting into motion the dominoes that are going to trickle? As you just saw, one tiny little domino set into motion to eventually knock down the huge one. Why? Because it is a demonstration of momentum. It is a demonstration of physics. And if this is a world, there's only one life, and that life is God, then this demonstration of physics is a demonstration of divinity in motion. And what is this saying? That in order to topple this immense, oh, wait a minute, didn't we hear that somewhere back in the day in the Bible? Didn't what that boy named Jesus? Didn't Jesus say something about if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can tell that mountain to be moved, and the mountain will be moved. This small thought, this small faith, the size of a mustard seed, powerful, that greatest power that we possess, is able to make this thing that is 1,000 times bigger move. But the question is, are we effectively applying it? Are we tracing the effects of our lives now back to their source? How are our thoughts now contributing to and influencing and impacting the experiences that we have and those of others? And when I say those of others, for example, I do a lot of shopping, and without regard of, well, who's working in the warehouses to provide this stuff? And based upon what I'm throwing away, is it going into landfills that are now toxic because of so much trash being tossed in them? Even the amount of recycling, the amount that is effectively recycled is tiny compared to the amount that is sitting and waiting to be recycled. Am I contributing to the manner in which I spend money? Am I contributing to the toxic capitalism of? So comes back to me to ask, how am I practicing the science of mind and spirit? How am I effectively engaging my mental equivalents to change and transform not only my individual life, because there is only one, and that individual, which we're going to talk about next month, actually, the interconnectedness of all. There is no simply my life and your life. There is only one life, and that life is showing up as my life and your life. There's only one. So what I do, whether I realize it or not, impacts you, whether you realize it or not, and vice versa. And this applies for people in countries, in homes that we will never meet or visit. All of us are intimately flowing through all of creation in this way. So once again, the invitation comes back to say, well, what happens in us, in our consciousness, is far more important than what happens to us. Now, it's not saying that it is not important, but what is more important. See, let's go back to someone such as Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman. What is happening to them, the systemic ill called slavery, that is enslaving these human beings. What happened inside of them, emancipation, liberation, and freedom, is far more important than the chains that were put upon them. Because what happens within them is what gave them the ability to first break the chains within, to then break the chains on the outside. And this works for everything. But the question is, well, why? Because this is the way the law of mind and action operates. This is why we say thoughts change things. You want a different life? Change the way you think. As a man thinketh, as a person thinketh, so shall they be. That's why we have all these amazing quotes and aphorisms and, cute little, yes, platitudes. The invitation is to apply them so that they're not simply words that we say, but they are the energy by which we live. Our lives need not be determined or confined by the conditions, because actually it is our consciousness that changes the conditions. Anybody, any success story, first the person shifted their consciousness. And if we want, war was created by the consciousness of men, then peace on earth can be by the same consciousness of human beings who have now reached the tipping point that said, we've had enough years of war, enough. It is time to bring in the era of peace on earth, goodwill to all. Because this thing called war was created by humans. It can be uncreated by humans, and peace can be by humans. Racism, that's a human-made invention. Sex is human-made invention. Poverty, human-made invention. Our consciousness can change these conditions because consciousness is always changing conditions. You cannot touch the same water twice because the flow that has passed will never pass again. Enjoy each and every now moment of your life. Be present in the now. Do not try to hold on to some idea of nostalgia that it was so great back in the 70s. Remember when America was great? No. I remember certain things that were great for certain people and not for others. But as an overall, I would say it was great before the Pilgrims arrived. That's when America, Turtle Island, was great. When those who were the indigenous inhabitants of Turtle Island we're free to live. So rather than focusing on what was, how about we work on what is and what can be right here and right now? How do we build connections and collaborations and ways of cooperating with our indigenous siblings? Because what has happened has happened. What do we do now? How do we build and improve now? How do we create more sustainable relationships with one another and with the earth now? So breathe, because this idea of the flow, it's ever moving. Stop trying to grab and hold on to, because you can't. It's forever in motion. It's forever going to flow, because that is the nature of the universe. It is the nature of God. It is the nature of you. So flow. Be a part of the process. Be present. Do not try to be the same person today that you were yesterday. Be you today. Be who you are now. Ever open at the top, ever open at the bottom means that we continue to flow, continue to shift, continue to evolve from one iteration of who we are to the next iteration of who we are, to the next iteration of, to the next, in an infinite and ever unfolding of our divinity. God doesn't stop. Why should we? If what it is we are, why am I trying to hold on? I'm 20 and I'm going to maintain 20. Ray, you're 72 right now. Why are you still, why? Now, that doesn't mean to not be youthful, but to try to, and no shade to those who do get facelifts and tummy tucks and all of the other beautification things. But the idea is, are you doing it to somehow delay aging? Because you have this pre-programmed idea that aging, wrinkles, etc., mean a certain thing. You can, work out, do whatever you want to do, stay youthful, and yes, as long as we are doing it from the right motivation and the right consciousness. But we should be changing and evolving and growing and ever becoming more and more of the divinity that we are. That's why the phrase Yod He Vav He, I am that I am, is more accurately stated as I am that which is ever becoming more of itself as me. I am ever becoming more of my divine magnificence. Ever becoming more, ever embodying more. The purpose of the flow is to keep on flowing. The purpose of God is to keep on Godding, not looking for a peak or utopia of finally, at last, I never need to eat string beans again. Finally, I have reached the pinnacle of, I am now a millionaire. But staying in the flow. See, how many people think that once I take this workshop, the gates of Valhalla shall open. Once I get my degree, the gates of will open and my life will forever be. Wait. What do you mean? Oh, man. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Before the degree, after the degree. Before the training, after the training. The flow, life be lifing. Things are going to continue to show up, be addressed, be healed, transcended, and evolve. The purpose of the flow is to keep on flowing. The purpose of life is to keep on lifing and living and expressing and moving. Not looking for that brass ring that says, finally, at last, I have won this thing called life. I am done. Wait, no, you're not done. Because even when you're done with this life, there is only one life, and that life is the divine, and that life is infinite, eternal, and ever expanding. So when this is shed, according to our teaching, when this is shed, that thing called life, the individual soul that you are, continues. So stop looking for the brass ring. Flow and move and shift. What'd you say, Yoda? Oh, we're going to remix? Cool, let's remix. The purpose of life is to keep on living, not looking for a peak, perfect, or utopia of life, but rather staying an active participant in life. How are we participating in this thing called life? Are we distancing ourselves from it? Trying to remain stable, which translates as stagnant and immobile? Or are we remaining an active part of this thing called life that ever moves and ever flows, that comes in and goes out just like Tai Chi, ever moving? And speaking of Tai Chi, Chi, the energy of Chi is the life force of. So Chi works for us by working through us. And Chi is us always. That life force, that energy is ever present. It is who and what we are. Chi, just like God, it's what we are. So the question is, just like the yin yang, they're not opposites, they're complements, ever flowing, one moving to the other, and one always being within the other, always and in all ways. Dr. Holmes says, the law works for any condition you specify and for any person that you mention. So realize that you are actually dealing with the infinite intelligence that knows what, why, and how to do all things. Rejoice in the majestic power of the divine presence within you, all around you, and as you. So it doesn't matter what the condition is. This law, this infinite intelligence, this thing that we are, knows what to do, why to do, and how to do. And it is ours to understand the interconnectedness of, right? Like, think about working on a movie. Recently, I don't know, some beginning of December-ish, I don't know, end of November, whatever. When Wicked came out, I'm using Wicked as a key thing because we got green as the back. Anyhow, Cynthia Erivo, if I were to ask you, how many cameras do you think she operated on any given day? How much film do you think she edited herself? She didn't. I'm just answering for you. She didn't. Her job was to embody the character, to take the lead of the director, to follow the lead of her co-actors, etc., etc., etc. She knew what was hers to do, as did Ariana Grande, as did, like, each person knew what was theirs to do. And they did it in order to craft the entirety of the story. So this infinite intelligence that knows what, why, and how doesn't mean it is your task to do it all, but it is your task to do all that is yours to do. To flow in that infinite power and presence that is incarnating as you. Knowing that the law, so whatever condition you specify, the law works. No matter what person, the law works. So the question is, how are we engaging the law? Yeah, I know, Yoda. I figured you was coming up. So Yoda said we're going to remix. The law, which is always working, can be consciously directed to work for any condition, consciously directed for any experience, and consciously directed to work for any person that we specify. So we are invited to stretch into the realization that we are actually dealing with the infinite intelligence that knows the nuances of every who, what, when, where, why, which, and how to do all things. When we know this and we embody it, we can't help but to rejoice in the majestic power of the divine presence within us, all around us, and as us. Breathe. You may know the phrase, I can do all things through Christ that gives me strength. I can do all things because that which is the Christ consciousness is the very strength and power of my being. And when Yeshua, Jesus said, be still and know, and he said, be therefore perfect, just as your Father who art in heaven is perfect. Didn't say do, be it, embody it. And while that phrase is an anthropomorphized version of, the idea is there is that which is the absolute. Be perfect in your individualized expression, just as the absolute oneness of your all that life is perfect, whole, and complete. When you know the truth of it and you know the truth of you, and you know there is no separation between it and you, there is no God in heaven that is separate from, but there is that which God is as you, spirit as you, the universe as you. That's why Carl Sagan said, you are the way that the universe knows itself. The universe is expressing itself in, through, and as each one of us. So how are we stretching into the realization of this truth and this power? Going back to our analogy of the electrician and electricity, how are we tuning in or plugging into the absolute power of our being? Are we thinking that it is something separate from us? Or are we understanding that what it is us, and we tune in and tap into it through our embodied realization of it? Perhaps the simplest way to state the proposition is to say that we are surrounded by a mind or intelligence that knows everything, that the potential knowledge of all things exists in this mind, that the abstract essence of beauty, truth, and wisdom coexist in the mind of the universe, that we also exist in it and may draw from it. But what we draw from it, we must draw through the channel of our own minds. A unity must be established, and a conscious connection must be made before we can derive the benefits which the greater mind is willing to impart, import, reveal to us. We are surrounded by electricity. How are we plugging in? There is only one mind, and that mind is God, and that mind clearly knows everything because it is everything. How are we allowing that awareness, that knowledge, that wisdom, that intuition to flow as our knowing, wisdom, intuition? How are we making use of the divine power of our own divinity? Are we stumbling through, bumbling through with static electricity? Are we becoming master electricians who know and understand this power and use it effectively? So do not go with the flow, be the flow. Be it. Because when we think we have to go with the flow, then we think that there is the flow and then there's us, some form of separation. But when we are being it, there is no separation from who we are, and what we do. That's the entire lesson of the idea of the Karate Kid is Daniel thought he was doing wax off, wax on until he realized what he was doing was actually learning karate or practicing karate. And then eventually it wasn't just karate, but it was karate do, the way of the empty hand. It was the way of karate. And he and karate became one. That's what Mr. Miyagi was, in essence, teaching him, how to embody this. So there is no space, there is no separation between who and what you are and what you do. That's why you are able to respond in any given moment with the most effective way of deflecting, moving, etc. There's no separation. So let us reiterate or restate our principle. We are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us and as us. And as it passes into our being, through our being, as our being, it automatically becomes the law of our own lives. It can pass into expression through us only as we consciously allow it to do so. I was going to pause. Actually, I'm going to pause right now. Just as a quick note, that flow, that divinity, we can't stop it. It's always. So consciously allow it. There is the aspect of it that is happening without our conscious awareness, right? Just like gravity. A baby that is born has no idea what gravity is, what gravity means, doesn't know the word. But gravity is certainly going to make the baby's bottom hit the floor when the baby is learning to walk. So there is the element of, I have no idea what this is, but it's still happening. It's still operating. So just want to be clear. The fullness and most life-affirming expression of it is only going to be when we consciously allow it to be. Therefore, we should have life-affirming faith in it and its desires and its ability to do for us all that we shall ever need to have done, because we are acting as it as us, one and the same. Since it must pass through our consciousness, it is our consciousness, to operate for us, we must be conscious. We are invited to be conscious that it is doing exactly that. So when we are clear on this, and we understand there is no separation between, it empowers us to live in a completely different manner. There is thinking of dance. When you're first learning to dance, it's all about there's this move and there's this move and there's this move, and I've got to learn how to do this move well. And so when you're beginning, you're just focusing on individual moves versus, right? I got to get the move right. But then at some point, I got them. I don't even have to think about a plie. I can do a plie. Or I don't have to think about, the Lester Horton technique. I can simply do, right? But even there is still the invitation to identify in this, am I more of a technician of the craft? Or am I more of an artist of the craft? Technician is going to be void of the heartfelt emotion. Artist, fully embodying and fully expressing. So, going back to the Karate Kid, for example, the Cobra Kai were great technicians of karate. They were excellent technicians, but they were not artists. Mr. Miyagi was the embodiment of what it meant to be an artist of karate, a master of it. Likewise, our invitation is, am I a great technician of science of mind and spirit? I know the quotes, I know the books, I took the workshops, I got a license, I got an ordination, I'm a minister, ooh, but I'm a technician. Or am I an artist? Breathe. The universe is impersonal. It gives to all alike. No respecter of persons. It rains on the wealthy as it rains on those who are not. That's the idea. The sun shines on this side of war and the sun shines on this side of war. God is not invested in who wins the football game. It's right. That's the general idea. The infinite, no respecter of persons. God's not going to say, oh, well, because you were born here, I'm going to give you this. And because you were born there, I'm actually going to take this. Doesn't work that way. That which the universe is values each and every one alike. The nature of it is to impart to itself as us, and ours is to receive as well as to offer back. Circulation. When we stand in the light and as the light, we cast a shadow across the pathway of our own experience. We are a lamp unto our own feet. And as Emerson advised, we allow that bloated nothingness, whatever that may be in the moment, to be out of the way, and we allow the divine circuitry of the universe, that infinite flow, to flow. Now, bloated nothingness could be any number of things. So I invite you to marinate on that. What does that mean for you? So wherever we are, God is. No matter what we are doing, God. So as we are going through our daily lives, the busyness of, how are we ensuring that that bloated nothingness is not impacting in a non-life affirming way the circuitry of the divine? How do we ensure, as Octavia Butler said, how are we ensuring that all that we touch, we change, and all that we change changes us? And the only lasting truth is change. God is change. All that we touch, all that you touch, you change. And all that you change changes you. That's why I said circulation. We receive and we give, simply to receive again and to give again. All that we touch, we change. And that which we have changed changes us. How are we moving through this space? And as Yoda said, you are change. If God is change, then you are change, because that which it is you. You are it. So we now come to a definite teaching regarding prayer. We shall receive that for which we ask. It shall be open to us when we knock, and we shall find that for which we are searching. Because this teaching implies there is a definiteness of spiritual and mental work. It is definite. God is intelligent mind and spirit, and there is a direct response from this universal intelligence to our intelligence, because there's only one. So if we ask for bread, we shall not receive a stone. But we are told that we must ask believing if we are to receive. Do we believe? So we come to this definite teaching regarding prayer. We shall receive that for which we are most aligned by way of our mental equivalence. If we simply ask, it is not enough. We must ask, acknowledge, accept, and act. It, answered prayer, shall be our experience when we respond in ways that demonstrate that we are aligned with the subject of our prayers. And this teaching implies the definiteness of spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical workings. In other words, living it as a way of life. God, as intelligent mind and spirit, directly responds from this universal intelligence to our and as our individual wisdom and intelligence. We must pray with our lives, not just our words. As you may know from, I think it's NBC, the more you know. Well, yes, the more you know, but our invitation is the more you do. Because as G.I. Joe once said, knowing is half the battle. Well, therefore, doing is the other half. When your knowing becomes your doing, then you are on the path of effective stewardship, aka mastery of your life. So it flows. It is the flow, and it is all that you are. And so I invite you once again, as we went over these last week, reread these and embody them. God expresses God, and that expression appears as you. For the only God you and I will ever know is the one we embody. Never forget that. Go over these and look at, how does this make me feel? How am I invited to tune in, plug in, to become an artist of these truths? Because just like the circulatory system, as we talked about earlier, it's all interconnected. The flow of whether it's blood or neurochemical or air, or there's a flow. There's a flow to how the body operates, which means there's a your body is your scripture. Your body is demonstrating how flow of God, that is God, moves and operates. And the more we can look at, well, how does, for example, the anatomy of a neuron, how does it work? How does it do what it does? As it says, third section down, electrical signals travel down a long and thin process known as an axon. Electrical signals travel, they flow. You don't see your neurons. You don't see these, but that means this flow is happening without your conscious awareness or your conscious observation of it. That means that which is the invisible. We're not even talking about in the absolute as God yet. We're talking about in the relative. Your physical human body is a divine demonstration of the flow of the universe. So looking at all of the ways that we show up in the world, our invitation, as Carl Jung said, don't simply dream by looking outside. Awaken by looking inside. Awaken by recognizing and embodying. The science of mind and spirit offers us an applicable practice that accesses the truth of ourselves and empowers us to live daily in more and more and more life-affirming ways. Just as reading a recipe is not the same as preparing the recipe, and preparing it is not the same as serving it and eating it, we are fully committed to what this teaching offers. So we don't simply read, we embody, we consume, we are nourished by, and we express. When we are fully committed to what this teaching offers, we will show up as a living embodiment of it, because we will not only know what it is, but we will practice it and we will be living it as a way of life. As a result of our individual involution and evolution, we will, by conscious and subconscious ways, impact, inspire, influence, and instill this flow in all those we meet and all those we interact with. This is what transforms, this is what heals, and this is what shifts the global consciousness in order to manifest a world that truly works for all. Breathe. This week's affirmation or declaration, I'll say it first, and then if it resonates with you, say it with me the second go around. The divine flows naturally in, through, and as me, and expresses itself as my highest good and for my highest good. Together, the divine flows naturally in, through, and as me, and expresses itself as my highest good and for my highest good. And so it is. This week's journal questions, Thursday night study group questions. One thing that I do regularly that is a demonstration of my life-affirming flow would be what? One thing that I do regularly that is a demonstration of my non-life affirming flow would be what? One example where I am a technician of my life would be, and one example of where I am an artist of my life would be, fill in the blanks. What are three examples of how I am different today from who I was last year, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What are three examples of how I desire, how I intend to be next year, in 5 years, in 10 years? And what must I do today to arrive at this new me? And lastly, someone wants to be in the flow of life. What would I suggest that they do based upon what I have done or based upon what I do that has worked or is working for me? Breathe. And we enter into that space of infinite knowing that we refer to as prayer. And today I will simply say, knowing that God is all there is, then it must be who and what I am. And knowing that it is who and what I am, I know that all that it is me. And so I surrender into this infinite awareness and allow that awareness, that truth, to be my embodied reality so that I flow with the truth of my being, that this infinite, this absolute, is individualizing itself right here and right now. And as I say this, I know that this is the truth for everyone watching, that this infinite, as Meister Eckhart said, between me and God, there is no between. So knowing that there is no between, there is only this which is God, this which is spirit, the universe, the thing itself, knowing that that is all there is, I stand in gratitude. I stand in the infinite and as the infinite flow of love itself, transformation and enlightenment and the Christ consciousness, the Buddha consciousness, the infinite Atman and Aham Brahmasmi. Om Tat Sat. I am that which I am ever becoming more of, because that which I am is ever becoming more of itself as me. And knowing that this is already answered prayer, I stand back and marvel at the magnificent and powerful way that I show up as the flow of God itself. And so it is. And so it is. Much love and appreciation, everybody. Blessings. If you're attending any of the classes this week, see you then. Otherwise, I will see you here next Sunday. Blessings.